This is a world map, and as you can see, it contains countries, about 195 of them. But you clicked on this video wishing one of your own, so let's get to it. In this world where wars are being fought since the beginning of time to conquer land and resources, it sounds impossible for normal people like you and me to call a place your own country. But there is a very interesting place, very close to where humanity literally started, right there. This small area is approximately the same size as the Canadian capital of Ottawa. It is a hostile, deserted land in the middle of the Sahara with absolutely zero infrastructure and no permanent population. This area is called Bir Tawil, and it is between two densely populated countries, Egypt and Sudan. So the question is, why hasn't anyone in the world or any country in the world got around to Bir Tawil yet? Well, like most of the modern geopolitical border issues, the source of this issue is also the British. In the early 19th century, Egypt was the part of the Ottoman Empire, but despite that, Egyptians were somewhat autonomous.
And they were also conquering the land of their own towards
The south, modern-day Sudan. They ruled Sudan for decades until 1870s when the Sudanese people started a rebellion against the Egyptians for their freedom. But with this rebellion still going on, one major historical event happened, which was the opening of the Suez Canal in 1869, which led to the British interests peaking in Egypt and eventually in 1882 invading Egypt and transforming it into a virtual British protectorate. They were desperate to hold the country for their new short and efficient trade route to India. But little did they know, by doing this, they also entered into an open rebellion with the Sudanese people. And now that the Egypt is virtually a British protectorate, for the Sudanese, the British rule was now equal to the Egyptian rule. The British, being British, tried to shut down the rebellion, but instead of a quick victory, it turned out to be an 18-year-long excruciating war. It took all the Egyptian and British army with modern weapons to defeat Sudanese rebels. After their victory in the rebellion, Sudan was made a British condominium and given a new name. Now, Sudan was Anglo-Egyptian Sudan. Now that the both countries were under British rule, the Britishers had to decide the border between Egypt and Sudan. And again, I have to mention, like most of the borders created by the British, this one also turned out to be chaotic. Chaotic due to the lack of modern mapping satellites, technology, and most of all, the Britishers didn't really care what they were doing. First, they decided to make a straight line along the 22nd parallel of latitude. However, this line was not at all practical and was drawn by a guy sitting in London having no idea or knowledge of what he was doing. The tribes in that area crossed the border for their daily needs, and the huge chunk of Egyptian tribe was living in the Sudan side of the border, and the huge chunk of Sudanese tribe was living in the Egyptian area. So after 3 years, they revised that border and make a zigzaggy line instead of the absolutely straight one. This was an administrative boundary which solved the problem temporarily and created the two regions, Bir Tawil and the Halaib Triangle. It didn't really matter what the official border was, as they both were under the British rule and not independent countries. The problem was solved and the both countries lived in peace for decades. Until 1956. When they both got independence from the British, they had to choose between the two borders drawn. Now it mattered because they both were independent countries. Just by looking at it, you can tell why Halai Triangle would be the clear choice for both countries. It is almost 10 times bigger in size than Birtaville, and instead of being a deserted wasteland, it has a nice coastline to the Red Sea and a small population living inside it, which makes it definitely more desirable than Birtaville. So they could either choose A. the 1899 border along the 22nd parallel latitude, which gave Egypt the Halai Triangle and Sudan Birtaville, or B. 1902 zigzaggy border, which gave Sudan Halaib and the Egypt Birtaville. Being suffered from long wars and being the victims of the British rule, they decided not to fight over the Halai Triangle and peacefully share it. This was good until recently. In 1992, oil reserves were discovered in the waters of the Red Sea along the Halai coastline. And it was crystal clear that whoever holds the Halai Triangle owns the oil reserves. Now both those countries were not in a mood to share, and each of them tried to outsmart the other in many different ways, until the tensions escalated so much that Sudan attempted an assassination of then Egyptian president, and then Egypt, being the superior military power, responded by kicking out each and every last person of the Sudan military and the Sudan official. Seeing all this, Sudan decided to back off, and the Halai Triangle since then has been controlled by the Egypt alone. Although, despite withdrawing, Sudan still claims the Halaib and shows it on all the official Sudanese maps. Egypt, on the other hand, have made huge investments in the area to strengthen their claim of that land. So that's the story of Birtaville. If either Egypt or Sudan claims Birtaville, that means they automatically lose their claims to Halai Triangle. And no other countries have tried to claim it, as it's between completely two different countries and it's basically a deserted wasteland. So if you are feeling a little adventurous and want to rule a country, you can just go there and claim Birtaville without anyone stopping you. Although, good luck enforcing your claims. So now that you know how exactly to get your own country, I wish you all the luck in this crazy adventure. If you enjoyed the video you just watched or found it somewhat fascinating, I request you to give it a like and subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon for more.